All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into something really powerful. We're looking at the memoir of Mehmet Ali GÜNER to get a real, on-the-ground view of a super turbulent time in Turkish history, all through the eyes of someone who was right in the middle of it.
Let's just start with this quote from GÜNER himself. It's pretty chilling. It really sets the stage for the kind of world we're about to step into. A world where death was just normal.
So, why does one man's story matter so much? Well, with GÜNER, his personal memory is basically a vital historical document. See, his story isn't just about him. It's really the story of a nation. You know, the journalist Rekai Aktain put it perfectly. He saw GÜNER as a writer for the people. His voice was authentic. It cut right through all the official stories you'd hear from the powerful. He was telling the stories of the marginalized, the ones history usually just tries to forget.
So let's get into his childhood, which was, to put it mildly, forged in fire. Long before he ever got into politics, he was dealing with just extreme hardship. He even said his own start in life felt like he was starting far behind everyone else.
Just try to picture this. We're talking about a tiny village in Anatolia in the 1960s. 35 houses. That's it. No electricity, no running water, no roads. He was part of a family of 9 with no land, and they were illiterate. He described it as a place so remote that birds do not fly and caravans do not pass. I mean, things we take for granted were total luxuries.
And you'd think school would be an escape, right? For GÜNER, education was his only path out. But the school itself was just another battleground. He remembers a generation of teachers who seemed to rule through fear, using arbitrary and often just brutal violence in the classroom.
And he remembers this one moment so clearly it just says it all. A mother actually bursts into the classroom. She throws the bloody cotton from her daughter's head wound, a wound the teacher gave her with a ruler, right onto his desk. Just an incredible, desperate act of confrontation.
Okay, so he gets out of the village and moves to the city of Adana for his education. But he basically swaps one battlefield for another, much more dangerous one. We're in the 1970s now, and the streets are just electric with political tension. We're talking assassinations, massacres, a really dangerous time.
So how does he survive financially? He gets this really surreal job selling these things called epics. And he made this dark joke about it, saying being an epic was harder than selling one. He was literally selling public sorrow just to make rent.
And just look at the titles of these poems. They give you a sense of just how much tragedy was in the air. And he wasn't just selling them. He'd recite them, and crowds would gather and weep. He said it was like turning a simple sale into a funeral ceremony.
Violence and death were so common, so everyday, that one day, this is wild, GÜNER hears that he has been killed. His own friends held a memorial for him and boycotted class. He literally saw them running up to him, their eyes sparkling, telling him, "This memorial for him is for you." Can you even imagine that?
It turns out the victim was another student with the same name from the same town who even had the same job. A crazy case of mistaken identity. But man, what a chilling way to be reminded of just how vulnerable you really were.
All right, so he graduates, and where does he get assigned as a teacher? Not somewhere safe, nope. He gets sent to Erzurum, a major stronghold for his political opponents. The journey itself felt like a descent into something totally unknown and dangerous.
And this bus ride, it was like a tour of Turkey's recent trauma. He leaves Adana, a city already steeped in violence. Then he passes through Maraş, where a massacre had just happened. Then Malatya, another site of riots and murder. Every city on the map was a fresh wound. He called it a beautiful land watered with blood.
And on that bus, he asks himself this question that just hits you right in the gut. Can a person be so uneasy in his own homeland? He felt like a refugee in his own country. He felt like he was just a guest and that his time there would soon be over.
So he gets to this small town, Hinnis, to start his teaching job. And what starts as a really minor classroom incident, well, it spirals out of control so fast and becomes this politically charged nightmare that literally threatens his life.
Check this out. A student blows cigarette smoke through the keyhole. That's it. But this student is the son of a local political leader. Suddenly, there's a fake report saying GÜNER beat him. A lynch mob forms outside the police station demanding they hand him over. They ambush him in the street, they shoot at his house. The police literally told him, "You are our guest tonight," while holding him for his own protection, and then had to sneak him out the back window just to save his life.
So he's in the middle of this very personal fight for his life. And then, overnight,
The entire country just gets flipped on its head. He wakes up one morning, and there's a curfew. The 1980 military coup had happened, just like that. And for Gunner, this meant his little local problem just became a massive political case. His main enemy wasn't a lynch mob anymore, it was the state itself.
And this is where his personal ordeal really merges with this massive national trauma. He becomes just one of thousands of people who were swept up in what happened next.
After the coup, the case against him got even worse. He was arrested, put on trial, and thrown in prison. Why? Basically for being a teacher who thought the wrong things. Suddenly, he's in this makeshift prison, a converted bathhouse, packed with other teachers, lawyers, students, and his fight for survival just moved behind bars.
You know, years later, Güner looks back on all this and says something so powerful. He questions the intense ideological battles of his youth, a time when even love was seen as counter-revolutionary. And from the perspective of someone who's actually lived through it, he says he wished he'd fought for human rights instead.
And really, that's the question his whole memoir forces us to ask. When history is so often written by the winners, by the powerful, what's our job? What is our responsibility to make sure these essential, human stories from the survivors don't just get erased?